Hello everyone on internet. We're glad you're with us, and this is Saturday Night Live Life Recovery Ministry Life Recovery Meeting. We're going live through the internet. We'll be on Facebook, YouTube, Saturday Night Live, Doug Wilkerson with SNL on YouTube. Central Christian Center, SNL, Facebook, and my Facebook, Doug Wilkerson, and the church's Facebook, Central Christian Center. So there's 5 of them if I got them all there. But anyway, we just want to welcome you, and of course we want to welcome everyone here tonight. And by the way, I got a message from John Bartholomew. You were asking about split log a moment ago, and that's John Bartholomew. He's thinking that he may come up next week and be here with us, and so.
More lambs with him.
Excuse me?
He'll bring more lambs with him.
Yeah, he was going to be bringing a van and with some folks in it, and so of course so we got to treat them nice if they show up, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway. Tonight we're going to be starting off with Doug. He's going to be reading the 12 steps, and then we'll be having Tommy doing step 11, Friends of the Light. That's out of our recovery Bible and handbook or guidebook. And then we will be having John doing reflection. And then I'll be doing what we call Doug time. I will be covering 12 important tips on how to let go of the painful past and be free. So I think it'll be a lot of information. So hopefully we can do that, and I think it'll be really good. And hopefully we can process that as we go through it. So, all right, I'm going to read a couple of quotes. Okay, this is my weekly thought, quote, and question slot. And basically what I'm doing is there were some quotes in the material, and I just thought I'd throw them in here, and then I'll bring them up again later in the material. How's that? Sound good? So the first one is from a Jack Cornfield, and that's K-O-R-N, Cornfield. And he said this. He says, we were talking about letting go a while ago. He says to let go does not mean to get rid of. To let go does not mean to get rid of. He says to let go means to let be. When we let be with compassion, things come and go on their way. What do you think? We'll be talking more about that. The next one is Carl Jung, and I bring his name up pretty often, a psychologist, and he said this. He said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. How's that? You got that one? Want me to read it again?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. Carl Jung said this. He said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Hello, glad you're here. Saturday Night Live. Did you get some coffee there? Okay, you see, I see. All right. And we got tea too, if you like that. Next quote is from Mahatma Gandhi, and he said this. Happiness is when what you think, you say, and do are in harmony.
Yeah.
You can't live you can't live your values if you're living for the approval of others.
For anyone, right?
Repeat that.
All of it?
Yeah.
All of it? Okay, Mahatma Gandhi said this. He says, happiness is when what you think, you say, and what you do is in harmony. That's being congruent. Okay?
Synchronized.
Yes. And then the follow-up statement is, you can't live by your values if you're living for the approval of others. Okay? Now, of course, that can be misconstrued, but there's a lot of truth in that. Okay? We'll talk more about that later, too. All right. So, we're getting ready to begin, and so we're going to start off with, today while I was praying, I was thinking about this. Anyway, we haven't done clean time in a long time, and I just want to say if anybody wants, we have clean time bracelets. Just for today bracelets, we got 30-day bracelets. We got
6 months.
we got 6, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. If you need a clean time bracelet, we'd like to have that available for you. Anybody need a bracelet? If you do, you can either say something now or talk to John. He can get you one. Okay, John's this guy sitting here.
Or if you're out in the internet, let us know.
Yeah, you out in the internet, let us know. And we can send you one. Of course, we'll have to have an address, so. That's a good idea. Thank you, John.
Yes.
I thought about, the first part came to me as I was preparing and praying today, but I didn't get that part, so. All right, so now we're going to go to reading of the 12 steps. So let's hear Doug.
You saying I'm short?
Well, I just want to make sure you got into the mic there, buddy.
First step, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and our lives had become unmanageable. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God, to others, and to another human being the exact natures of our wrongs. We were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. We humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. We made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. We continued to take a personal inventory, and then we were wrong, promptly admitted it. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of Him, His will for us, and the power to carry it out. I wish we had a few minutes because I've got something to dwell on that big time. Anyway, number 12, having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thank you, Doug.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Hello, world.
A little low.
Huh? A little low. I mean, you're raise the mic up wrong. You don't, your volume is low.
Speak up, dog. Speak up.
No, I want to mumble.
I should have fixed the back row.
Do the mumble step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, friends of the light. The Bible reading is John 3:18-21. It says, "The one who believes in him is not judged. The one who does not believe has been judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and people love the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil. For everyone who does evil hates the light, and does not come to the light, so that his deeds will not be exposed. But the one who practices the truth comes to the light, so that his deeds will be revealed as having been performed in God. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contacts with God, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Sometimes we don't want to know God's will because there are areas in our life that we aren't ready to deal with yet. Recovery is a process for us. We may be ready to pray for God's will in some areas, but feel uncomfortable having God's light shine into the areas that are still hidden in shame. When talking about those who refuse to trust him with their life, Jesus said, God's light came into the world, but people loved the darkness more than the light, for their actions were evil. They refused to go near it for fear their sins would be exposed. John 3:19 and 20.
What do you think that means, Tommy?
Do I think that means?
What do you think that means?
I'd rather live because it's more comfortable and not have to deal with it.
It says that they avoid the light.
Yeah, because they want to keep their sins. I know when I was doing drugs and living crazy, anytime I heard anybody tell me like the right thing to do or the right way to go, I didn't want to hear it because I didn't see it possible going the right way, but also still being able to do my drugs.
Okay. I just thought it'd be good
Yeah.
that you expound on that right there.
Was that? Should I go further or
Sure, go ahead.
ask another question? If you want.
I don't have one right at the moment.
Thank you. Either way, thank you. Later, in one of his talks, Jesus said to the people, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness because you will have the light that leads to life. Well, I kind of wanted to follow Jesus, but I kind of wanted to still do the only thing that I naturally knew how to do.
And so why did you have to avoid the light to be able to do what you wanted to do?
Because I really didn't know what was going on in my life. And
So that's a lot of words to say one thing.
I'll tell you this, when I was on drugs and I came to church and I seen people and they're all happy and everything, and you're on drugs and you're not happy, they're fake. This is when I was in darkness. I did everything to justify what was wrong with everybody else, and I'm going to get high after church. But once I stopped doing that, I realized, wait, they have happiness. They have joy. You know?
And you couldn't, and where we were going with that, you couldn't afford to see the truth because it affected you in a negative way.
Yeah, even though that it was a positive thing to get into, it affected me
So
negatively.
you had to basically lie to yourself or go into the dark.
Yes. Now I get what you're asking me. Darkness is great when we're trying to hide something, it's like Doug said. But light is needed when we are trying to walk without falling. When we were hiding our shameful behavior and holding on to our addiction, the darkness seemed like our friend. Now that we are trying to walk towards recovery, we need the light to keep us from stumbling. We don't have to be afraid of God's light anymore since we have his forgiveness through Christ. He wants to safely guide us to the light. I had a hard time with this one, because I kind of went like 3 different directions, and so I worked it 3 times.
Good.
And I picked this one to go with. So one of them was angry, one of them was like defensive, and this one's just being real, I guess. I mean, I don't know if I was really angry in the other ones, but I didn't understand where it says, when I think that I'm hearing God's will, whose power do I act on? Am I tempted to do God's will in my own power? And it confused me. And it made, the way I seen it was saying like, I was a puppet for God. Like I was God's puppet. Like nothing I did, if I did it without God's power, I wasn't doing it for God. I'm trying to say how it made sense to me. It just seemed like, I read it that way, like I was a puppet. Like I'd be a puppet
If you what?
if I did it without my own power. So I had to look up what my own power was. Well, my own power led me to live in the darkness
There you go.
constantly. So I was like, oh, okay, got it. So I got this. More often than I sometimes want to admit to, I have to remind myself to get out of God's way. And something that helps me is the Lord's Prayer, or some call it the model prayer. As I first learned it in the King James when I was a child, in Matthew 6:9-13, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. That has helped me so many times. Because like, my friend will say, pray. I don't know what to pray about. Well, you're not, just pray. And so, I had someone in my family point out, well, just do the Lord's, well, they said the model prayer, so I was like, I kind of keep that in my mind now, because it works.
Awesome.
It's a little easier when I go, I don't know what to pray about. It tells you right there. Because Jesus reminds us in Matthew 6:8, your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. I wrote, knowing that God knows everything about me can and has been at times in my life a terrifying thing to accept when faced with wanting to keep portions of darkness in my life that I struggle with sometimes still. When I was high on meth for the first 15 years or so, I ran from an invisible killer that I believed was hunting me. It took a long time while I was first getting into recovery from my addictions to realize if I stopped putting the substances in my body by my own power, that the invisible man that I believed wanted to take my life would leave me alone. And he did. It took a lot of time to learn a new way of thinking, and God helped 100% with His power to heal my fears and show me through prayer, the Bible, and positive influences that help to teach me things. One big thing I learned, there is a major difference between my timing and God's timing, and when I get stubborn, I don't always remember that my power only brings failure or not the results I was looking for if I would have only been patient with God.
It's good.
Thanks. I felt a lot better after I started really digging into it and looking at it.
Have you noticed that you have trouble with almost everyone you do?
I thought that, I did think, I was like,
But that's a good thing, because you don't give up and go ahead and process through it, so
well,
congratulations.
what I've learned now is not to tell you I don't like this one. And,
There's coffee and tea over there, sir. Thank you, sir.
I almost want to start over and reread this for
My hurts and stuff.
this young man.
I do.
I'm good. Can I reread it for
I
you?
don't care.
I'm going to.
He's gonna reread this for you since you just came in,
Yes, sir.
all right?
Knowing that God knows everything about me can and has been at times in my life a terrifying thing to accept. When faced with wanting to keep portions of darkness in my life that I struggled with sometimes, when I was high on meth for the first 15 or so years, I ran from an invisible killer that I believed was hunting me. It took a long time while I was first getting into recovery from my addictions to realize if I stopped putting the substances in my body by my own power, that the invisible man that I believed wanted to take my life would leave me alone. It took a lot of time to learn a new way of thinking, and God helped 100% with His power to heal my fears and show me through prayer, the Bible, and positive influences that helped to teach me things. One big thing I learned, there is a major difference between my timing and God's timing, and when I get stubborn, I don't always remember that my power only brings failure or not the results I was looking for if I would have only been patient with God. Dude, so I learned to stop telling you that I don't like this. So I get in there with the I don't like this and I write all the crap, and then I'll do it again the next day, and then I'll give myself a day or two off, and then I'll go in and work it,
Excellent.
and it works. I do have this last scripture I want to read. In 1 Corinthians 6:14 it says, "Now God has not only raised the Lord, but He will also raise us up through His power." It's cool. Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you, Tommy. There are in this world different sources of light, but the best light and basically the only light to go to for change is God's light. Light brings change, darkness brings no change, light brings life, darkness brings death. If we stay in our stuff too long, it leads to death. If we don't change, we eventually will fall back into our old ways, and we will eventually die in our old ways, which that's not the goal. The goal here is for us to change and do what God wants us to do and become the people that we were originally created to be. But it's kind of rough and takes some work, but it's doable. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Doug, number 2. Appreciate that, and I wanted to come out and shake the guys that came in. You look familiar, but I don't know your name. Now, we're on video here, so if you walk up here, you're on video. But you want to say your name? You don't have to if you don't want to.
It's Wolf.
Wolf?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm glad you're here.
See you.
Nice to see you. I'll maybe shake your hand later. How about that?
I'll get there.
Okay?
I'll go say hi to Tommy.
Okay. Hey, when you walk out in the alleys, see if, okay, it's working all right. Well, I appreciate that, but I just was gonna ask you to check on our sound system out in the alley. You'll be able to hear me out there.
You gonna preach or not?
Do I?
You gonna preach?
I'm getting ready to.
Yeah. I'll probably be back down.
I call it talking though.
Okay.
I didn't hear your name.
You didn't hear it?
I did.
But it could be me. Man. I'm getting old.
So we have different opinions, okay, well, that's kind of the way the world is, you know what I mean? It's just, but anyway, hey, I wanted to talk about a little bit, Tommy went up to the alley. We have multiple rooms here. We have this room, and then we have the alley room, which we got the sound system out there, which is okay. That's the reason why we got the sound system out there. But as I was reading this material, thinking about this walking into the light and not walking into the light, the other day, real early in the morning, I got out of bed and my wife has a night light in the bathrooms, and so you can, have you ever noticed how you can see things when you're walking towards the light, right?
Yeah.
But when I left the bathroom heading back back towards the bed in the dark, you don't see as well because you're walking away from the light. Have you ever noticed that?
Yep.
And when I noticed that the other night, I guess maybe because I'd read this information recently. I start on Saturday night, oftentimes, at least on Mondays, if not before. I start preparing for tonight about a week ahead. And so, and like Tommy talks about, he goes over it several times, and that's the reason why we do the steps. That's the reason why I ask other people to do the steps and do the reflection, is to help them to get into the information and process the information and rethink some of the thoughts and challenge some of the old stinking thoughts that we have that we didn't even realize we had until they're challenged. You know what I mean? Hello?
Rubbing it off on you.
And so what we have is, so that's the reason why we do the 12 steps. Now, I am going to go into what I'm going to be talking about, and this is out of Psychology Today, something I downloaded off the internet. I asked a couple different people, a couple different topics, and they selected this. Hey, Tommy, is the sound system working outside?
Yes.
Okay, so you heard me talk about walking towards the light and away from the light?
Yeah, I walk backwards.
Do I? And so anyway, we're going to be talking about 12 important tips on how to let go of painful past. Does anybody here have painful past?
Yeah.
Is there anybody that doesn't? Because we're all human beings and we're all trying to make our way through this life journey, and there are many points of pain. Some maybe are more painful than others. Some of them is because of our choice or choices, and some of them is because of the circumstances, the things that happen to us, right? And so, but either way, whether it's our choice or circumstances that things happen to us, we still have to take responsibility and deal with it. Shall I say that again?
Yeah.
No matter whether it's circumstances that affect our lives, that affected us and maybe traumatized us, or our unhealthy choices, no matter whichever, we still, to be able to turn things around in our life, we still have to take responsibility for all of that, and we deal with it, whether I did it or it was done to me. For me to get better, I have to take responsibility.
Yep.
And begin to deal with it. I had a couple of nods in there, so how about you guys out there on TV land? Okay, right, you guys in here, I'd like for you to stand up if you could. And just raise your hands up real high, take a deep breath.
Right?
I just wanted to have a little physical. Most of you've been running up and down the stairs, and just kind of break the deal. You're not stretching very much. You look like. Frie. Okay, how about your hands down? Sit down.
Thanks for making me feel at home.
You had that look on your face. Okay. All right, 12 tips. This is a familiar, similar statement, but they have it down here as another potential topic or title. 12 steps on how to let go so that you can have personal freedom. Because when we have this trauma or pain in our life, it locks us up. Doesn't it?
Yep.
Okay? And then we talk to ourselves and say how everybody else is bad, and that's what you were talking about the you don't have to deal with your own stuff. So we hide ourselves in the dark. It's hard to hide ourselves in the light. Have you noticed that?
Wow, that's,
right?
that doesn't make sense. There's nothing to hide when you're there, so. I mean, there probably is for some people, but this doesn't, that would make sense.
Well, I could expound on that. And the fact of it is, the truth is, we don't even know what we got, but what we do know, we don't want to have it revealed in the light. And that's the reason why we work the 12 steps, to help us begin to the place that we process and let go of this stuff and bring it into the light so that we can deal with it. Because we think that nobody knows our stuff,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of people that's around us that knows our stuff. But we fool ourselves about our stuff. And we think we're hiding, okay?
It's true.
That's called unconscious incompetence, by the way. I don't know, I didn't only know I don't know, but then one day when you do know, you become conscious, okay? And you're still incompetent, but now you become conscious that you're incompetent. That begins the process.
So that's kind of like torture.
It is to a degree, except I'd rather call it healing. Because all healing is painful too. Okay, let me get back on the topic because we got a ways to go, and that's right, I like it. So here are some key points here. So this is these key points, and there's 3 of them that are stated here about what this information says, and I think it's pretty good because I learned in the very beginning that the way you write a letter or you supposed to do a message is you tell everybody what you're going to say, and then like these key points, and then you tell them in your message what you're saying in the body of your letter, and then you have a conclusion, and then you tell them what you told them. So basically, you tell people 3 times. Have you ever heard that thought before? 3 times, important things 3 times?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here are some of the key points. I don't know, just a little lesson there. Okay, so holding on to pain doesn't fix anything and stifles growth. Key point number 1. Okay? I think we kind of get some of that, right? We'll talk more about that later. Some people hold on to their painful past because they don't know who they would be without those feelings. Who would I be if I wasn't angry all the time, or mean all the time, or a bully all the time, or passive all the time, or invisible all the time? If I don't have that, or who would I be if I wasn't shy all the time? What do you think? My question is, on this point, who do you want to be? Do you want to be what your past is dictating to you, those hurtful feelings of the past, or do you want to be set free? That's an okay question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a thought question. You don't have to respond to that. Okay, 3rd point. One way to move from the past is to start investing in is that right? One way to move on from the past is to stop investing in certain outcomes when it comes to interacting with people. What does that mean? Investing in certain outcomes. In other words, believing that certain people have got to be a certain way and they got to be that way because that's what I say they got to be, or I believe that. Does that make sense? So we oftentimes, we go in, relationships. We believe that somebody should be exactly the picture of what we think they should be. And then we find out,
Crazy.
because if they, because your picture may be unrealistic, right? But maybe it is realistic, but maybe you have unreal expectations. We'll talk more about that later.
Maybe a bit distorted.
Yeah, and, okay, so those are the three things. So, here's that quote that I made earlier about letting go, from Jack Cornfield. He said, to let go does not mean to get rid of. Oftentimes we think when we're letting go of something, that means you're just getting rid of it, okay? I really like what he's saying here. He says, to let go means to let be. In other words, when I was thinking about this, I saw it as, you kind of like, I wanted to be able to communicate it, but this is not what I saw earlier, but this is what I just saw right now. It's kind of like you're holding on a bird or a butterfly, and you open up your hand and you just let it. If it flies off, it flies off. If it doesn't fly, then it doesn't fly. If it comes back, it comes back. You let it. Just let it be. Oftentimes we don't want to let go, and we're holding on to.
There's a song about that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Let it be, let it be, let it be,
The
let
Beatles.
it be.
The Beatles.
Well, yeah, you're right about that. And so just let it be. And when you let it be with compassion, which is the main thing, okay? Oftentimes when we want to let go of something, oftentimes we're just mad and angry, right? And here we're talking about, we're just letting it be with compassion. In other words, letting it do whatever it chooses to do.
That's especially hard when you live with your children or your grandchildren. So let them have their pitfalls and their problems in life instead of solving them yourself because you know how you got through them. They have to work their way. It's like a chicken getting out of an egg.
Right.
If you help the chick get out of the egg,
Right.
the chick will die.
Right.
And it didn't have the stress getting out of the egg.
Right.
If you fix your child's problems for them, your child's not going to have the struggle to know how to deal with them later in life when you're not around.
And that's the truth. In fact, I think it's Napoleon Hill says that a lot of children of successful men, millionaires, usually don't do well because they hadn't had to learn to navigate life on their own and to build the emotional, spiritual endurance to grow.
That they also say, like from the other side, they say that once you start using, your emotional growth is right there, it's starting to run.
After you start using
Yeah.
what?
Like
I couldn't hear that part. I heard after you start using,
your emotional growth stops.
your emotional growth.
Stops right there at that age that you start using.
Okay, yeah, that's right. You stop growing when you stop using substances, whether it's drugs or alcohol.
It's what we used to call numbing it out.
No, that's the truth. And you're withdrawing and you're hiding and so I heard a deal about a business person that it was just a story that I heard that this man thought he was doing quite well because his business did do okay, but he smoked dope all the time. And he was able to function. Some people can function, and he didn't, but the rest of the story is he didn't know what it was doing to him. Because he was zoned out, so and nothing was a problem because he was high, so he didn't realize when there was a problem. And if you don't realize there's a problem, you can't fix a problem. Does that make sense? And so eventually, when his life started falling apart, you know, his wife divorcing him and his kids abandoning him and loss of his businesses because when things really started happening, guess where he went for comfort?
To the bar.
to that comfort zone and to escape. But finally he come to himself and realized, wait a minute, you know, I have to learn how to deal with these problems instead of just avoiding them. And hey, he was feeling no pain, but that didn't mean that the world wasn't caving in because of his choices, right?
Yep.
Is that true? Is it okay if I tell that story? I already did. So, all right. So, okay, let me finish. I don't think I got all the way through with that quote from Cornfield, and he said, to let go does not mean to get rid of. To let go means to let be. When we let be with compassion, things come and go on their own. And so it's hard to be willing to let go of things. And you know, your comment about your children, and yes, there's healthy boundaries and there's unhealthy boundaries, and then also there's enmeshed relationships where that means only the leader of the family makes all the decisions. That's called enmeshment, okay? Whether it's the dad or the mom or whoever. And so we have to, there's a healthy balance in everything,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes.
Trouble is, we have a hard time finding it. Yes? Okay, let's go on. This is kind of the preface of the 12 steps. Holding onto the pain does not fix anything. Replaying the past over and over again doesn't change it. Have you figured that out yet? Have you figured that out yet? Replaying the past over and over again. Somebody did you wrong, replaying that over and over and over. Does that fix it?
Nope. Poisons you,
Yes, it does. It poisons you.
not them.
And that's the truth. And so we need to, and wishing things were different doesn't make it so, right?
Nope.
All right? We have to take action, okay? We have to be willing to deal with it. So if those are things we're stuck in, and if you're stuck in them, you see them, now it's hard. It's hard when you realize it, but you have to begin somewhere. And I don't want to cause you pain, but then again, I want you to be able to come into light and start to see some of this stuff so that you can change your direction, right?
Yep.
All right, and the Holy Spirit will show us. He always has. Sometimes we're willing, sometimes we're unwilling. But He keeps on.
I've said, are you sure a few times?
Haven't we all? Are you sure? Okay. Holding, okay, I already did that one. In the same case, especially when it comes to the past, all you can do is accept, I know people hate it when I say that, accept whatever it is you are holding on to. You have to accept whatever you're holding on to and then let it go. Now, you have to accept what it is, okay? Yes, that means you accept the reality of what happened to me, or I got hurt, or I got my feelings hurt, or I made a mistake, I was wrong, whatever it was. Instead of denying it, which we like to do, deny and blame, hello, right? So what we have to do is accept it. And when you accept it, what?
Well, you're saying accept the reality of it, but then you're talking about someone that's strung out on drugs has no clue what the reality was.
Well, we're talking about getting better,
Yeah,
and everything is a process.
yeah,
And someone strung out in drugs, you're saying that they're incapable of having any ability to think. And in some areas, that may be true, particularly when they're wound up in their emotion, okay? But the fact of it is, even when you were in drugs, and you had your mind twisted up, as you were talking about earlier, you had snatches and glimpses, and you make choices, right?
Yeah.
And the rest of the story, I want to say this, because this is a really exciting part here. God has always shown up in our life.
Yep.
Even in our most desperate times. And intervened in some way. He didn't take away your choices, but still, somehow he comes in around the edges to try to help. And sometimes we didn't even, most of the time, we didn't even realize it was God. But he came in and he allowed it, most of the times he preserved our life. But this truth here is for wherever you're at, that you're able to grab it. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And if we can take that piece of truth that I just said there, that God has intervened, you may be extremely pissed off at God for what's happened in your life. But if you look back and see, if you'll just take a second and think, you may not realize it was God. You may say, I don't know how I got out of that. I thought it was going to get me. How did I leave that place? You know, would God somehow tell you to leave a drug house right before something?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's my point. Oh yeah, if you're listening, even if you're just a little bit, and see, that's that spiritual contact. Whether you believe it or not, he's trying to work in your life because there's an opening there. There is a point of faith that's in your life. Now, I know not every Christian, very few, I'm changing that, very few probably Christian ministers would say that.
That's kind of called going as the wind blows you, the spiritual wind, and go where the spiritual wind blows you, or as the spiritual wind blows.
Yeah, being led by the Spirit. And sometimes, though, we only let that come in because we only recognize it when we sense that Spirit gives us a sense to do something. Sometimes it's a sense of, and you don't even know sometimes, but sometimes it feels like something's weird or something is a threat, so you make a move. And you know, as you have done that, as we've all done that, you become more reliant on that. And see, and that's I want to call it a subtle trick of the Holy Spirit of God to get you to be more in tune with that. You agree or disagree?
I agree with the thought, but not the wording.
Okay, what's your wording?
Run that by me again, so I don't.
That the God, the Holy Spirit, that intuitive aspect of things, the source.
It's not a trick, it's a blessing.
Well, I know it is, but it is a blessing. But it's a way that He's found a way to come into our life to there's a scripture that talks about He succors us along, or He pulls us along. He nurtures us along.
And that feeling you get in your gut.
Yeah.
Everybody always tells you to go with your gut.
Yeah.
That might be done. You know?
What do you mean, mine?
Well,
Well, it's either one or two things. It's either God or it's not God, right? And if we allow ourselves to be sensitive and aware of that, I think that's part of God's nurturing in us. And I called it a trick, which is what bothered you. And it wasn't that it was a deceitful trick, but it was a positive motivation. How about that terminology?
I like mysterious
Mysterious ways, I like that one too. But it got your attention when I said trick,
Yes, sir.
okay? That's kind of one of the ways I do things, you know. It's a trick of mine. Okay, we haven't got to the 12 steps yet. So here we go. That's how everything changes. John, it seems a little warm in here now, so. That's how everything changes, by letting it go, okay? You have to let go. This is important here. You have to let go of what is hurting you, okay? And we're talking about that destructive pain, get that ache, that anger, that resentment, those grudges, all those things that poison your soul. And you know it's the poison in your soul, but we believe I have to continue to do that because that's the way I've always done that. Well, if that has worked for you, I guess go right ahead. But if it hasn't worked for you, which I think it probably hasn't, maybe you ought to look at letting those things go. All right? Okay? Good so far? Let's see. Deciding to, I think this is all good, but I'm gonna go ahead and skip on down to the 12 things because I'm gonna run out of time. All right, so, if you find it hard to let go of the past, a bad relationship or grudges, etc., these 12 things could help. Here are the 12 things. We're starting off with number 1. Understand that the relationships you thought you'd have are going to be different than the ones you actually have. Okay? Because we dream a dream, we have a fantasy of the way things are, and we don't, it's, those expectations don't line up with the way reality is. Hey, you don't even line up with your expectations of what you want. And you're expecting somebody or something to line up with your expectations. That's kind of unrealistic. Would you agree with that?
Amen.
And so we must accept the person we are, okay? Now, again, we're back to accepting the way we are. We have to, see, because we can't change ourselves if we don't accept ourselves, all right? That's, you know, we're going back to step 1 here. We have to recognize that we're messed up. We're powerless. We're broken. I don't have the power over this issue right here. And so I need to recognize that's where I'm at. Now, I got power in other areas of my life. I can make choices, but over this substance or behavior, I'm powerless. Right?
Yep.
And so if you're powerless, then you need to make a connection to some power. And that's the higher power, which I call God.
Get plugged in.
Get plugged in. And the way we do that is recognize I haven't been able to do this. I've tried a lot. I went to rehab 10 times or 12 times or whatever, you know. And so we each time did something, but maybe all those times brought you to the place that you are right now to recognize I need to let whatever it is that I've been trying to cover up and bury, I need to accept that's what happened. That's what I did or what was done, but that's not who I really am. And I need to let it go. Okay? You sense a theme here tonight? Okay. So, all right. How do we learn to let go? Wouldn't that be a thought that I ought to throw in here?
A lot of pain.
Pain does that. Pain gets our awareness, but that pain doesn't necessarily fix us. Have you ever noticed that? okay? The punishment mentality of our justice system doesn't ever make anybody, generally speaking, it doesn't make anybody better. Oftentimes it can make them even worse, right? Because it's set up on a punishment. Now, the New Testament, Jesus taught grace and forgiveness. And that if we really are able to let go and forgive, there's some healing that comes into us. Okay? And we'll talk more about forgiveness later, if hopefully we get to it, that forgiveness is not for others. Forgiving others is for yourself. Now, they will be affected, but primarily it's for you, to clean up your side of the street. And when your side of the street is cleaner, it affects everybody else.
But can I truly forgive others that haven't forgave myself?
It's challenge. You want to, you desire to, but it's really not all, in my opinion, it's really hard not to do that. People get stuck in, I'm glad you asked that question. Some people get stuck there because they want to forgive others because they know it's the right thing, but they haven't cleaned up their own stuff in that area, and they haven't done exactly what you said there, John. They haven't forgive themselves. So it's a desire to forgive, but you're not really able to fully do that, because how do you give something that you don't have? You want to say something, Wolf? Okay. And so here's some methodology, okay? Methodology. I like methods, okay? It helps. It doesn't do it for you, but it gives you some things to help you to work the process that may allow you to find the path, okay? All right, and that is by practicing gratitude. Okay, gratitude. Gratitude is about something that you are grateful for. Not that you want to be grateful for, but that you are grateful for. Okay? You're grateful for just whatever it is that you're compassionate towards, that you loved, you appreciated, someone that actually loved you in spite of yourself, that they loved you, or whatever it is, that you're able to be grateful for that. One of the things that I've mentioned here recently is a person I talked with, and was talking about, I was wanting them to come to a place of gratefulness and thinking about something they're grateful for. What can you be grateful for? And they had a thought about their grandmother making cookies for her and smelling the cookies. And I said, well, can you be grateful for that? And, oh yes, I was grateful for that. And see, that changes your heart. That changes your thinking, your brain, right? It actually chemically changes you because you shifted, okay? So practice gratefulness, practice appreciation, practice trust, okay? Trust in the process. Sometimes we can't trust other people, but we can trust in the process, okay? Like, for instance, a lot of people have an issue with the scriptures. Will the scriptures really work? Well, if you can find a scripture that you connect with, that you can feel, that's not somebody else's truth, but you can relate, that you connect with that, that's your truth. And that has a different feeling about it, right? Hello? Has a different feeling. And so if you can trust in the process that is working in you, because you feel it, right? And so that, again, begins to help you to accept, number one, Scripture. If you can accept one piece of it, then there's hope that we can accept some more pieces. What do you think about that? Yeah. All right, number two. I promised myself I was going to give you, does anybody want to say anything about this topic right here, about understanding the relationships, and that it might not be exactly what you thought it was going to be?
being married 4 times, they wasn't always wrong, you know,
Yes.
so, and I never acknowledged it was me, most of them.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Doug. Number 2, do not be invested in the outcome. Okay, this is going to be maybe a challenge one here. Don't be invested in the outcome when it comes down to dealing with people, because it often leads to disappointment. So what it's saying here about don't be invested in the outcome is that that's back to those expectations, that I know how it's going to turn out, and I am going to say it must be the way that I think it's going to turn out. Okay? Like maybe you're the supreme being and the controller of the universe. If that's the case, all right. So
Yeah, we're not driving the bus.
you're not driving the bus. Nobody here is God tonight. Hey, we made progress. All right. So these expectations may keep us stuck because they lead us to fear certain outcomes. See, because oftentimes, now correct me if you, this is my understanding here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but oftentimes we have rigid expectations because of our fear of uncertainties. So we're trying to control
That makes sense.
whatever we're involved in, whether if it's a relationship or life or circumstances. And so we're trying to, again, this is my interpretation, with this expectation, we're trying to control it because we are fearful that it's not going to go the way that we think we want it to go, and it must go. Does that make sense?
Micromanage it.
Yeah, and so that's the reason why we do the controlling thing, because we're afraid. Hello,
Yes, sir.
we buy that, and because there's no guarantees in life, and we don't control other people, which is the next statement here, the next item I think. But we don't control anything, and when our expectations or needs are not met, we need to respond rationally and appropriately. Okay, when our needs are not met. So I'm trying to help you how to process when you find yourself in this situation. So you need to have be willing to go ahead and deal with it rationally and appropriately with other people and with yourself, okay? Because we have to communicate, we have to process. Sometimes this means setting respectful boundaries, and other times it means letting go. But if you can't come to peace in here in a compassionate way in your expectations before you just let it go, then probably you're acting out of fear or anger. Is that too heavy for you? Is that okay? All right. Number 3. Don't live in chains when you have the key. Okay? We live with self-limited beliefs that we let define who we are. Okay? We live with self-limiting, and we all do. We all do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, many years ago, my youngest brother talked about how my dad was so afraid to try to break out of his shell and take some risks. And one of the reasons why was because of the way he was raised and He had to pretty much raise himself, and he was pretty much on his own when he was 12 and 13. He would, 13 or 14 years old, if I remember correctly. I mean, he took a train to like Arizona and got put in jail down there when, and because he's just, and so he, when he finally got some things together a little bit together in his life, he was afraid to take any risks. And I remember when he bought their first real house, and I was going to college at this time. I remember Dad coming in. I was a senior in high school, and Dad come in after he signed the contract for this house, and he was in a panic way. He was overwhelmed. He said, "I've signed my life away." He's overwhelmed because that was a extremely big step for him, and that's a big step for a lot of people. But it's, things hold us and they grip us with those arms of fear. Those are some of those self-limiting beliefs I'm talking about. Okay? One of my beliefs, fears that I had was this thing right here in front of me, going over the internet. Now, I've been doing it now for, 5 or 6 years, but in the beginning, I really didn't want to do it. Okay? But I decided I felt like I needed to do it. And also the Saturday Night Live team was telling me I needed to do that. And so I drug my feet a long time until finally I stepped out and did it. It's always a challenge, okay? On my broadcast that I did last Thursday that didn't air until Friday, which is an encouraging word with Doug, I made a mistake on one of the facts I said, and I felt real bad about making that mistake, okay? I'd written it down, but I wasn't to that place in my paper, so I gave it early, and it was on. And of course, I have, like I do here, I have multiple papers. And so, but I'll restate that information, and hopefully it's, we all make mistakes, right?
We'll forgive you.
Yes, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
We'll forgive you.
I was just feeling it. Okay. All right, so here we are. We're on we already did number 2, we're in number 3, and I'm working on You're the Key and self-limiting beliefs that we let define us, who we are. So your self-limiting beliefs or your fears define you. What do you think about that? Does that sound like the truth? Do you like that? You like that? You're shaking your head yes. You like that? You like your fear? Okay. We think that I can't do it, right? We believe that it'll never happen for me. We believe, why does this always happen to me? If there's anything bad, it's going to happen to me. Have you ever heard any of those? And many, many more? And those are things that we believe. We open up to that. And so, and if we only believe if we could only truly believe that we have that power and that we could accomplish our goals, then those things could start coming in, because that's the way it is. We have to be able to take those little bitty steps. They don't have to be humongous steps, but little steps, little by little. So we have to open our mind and believe in ourselves. There will be many people who tell us that we can't do it. And that's the truth, isn't it? But it's up to us to prove them wrong. Right? Okay. Any comments on number 3? Number 4. We're going to let go of the idea that you can control others' action. We have to let go of believing that we can control other people's action. Hi, Rick. Okay, the reality is that we can only control ourselves. Isn't that the truth? And how we act.
Sometimes I have trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, but we definitely have more opportunity to control ourselves than other people. And so we need to accept that. So we need to let go of the idea that we should control other people and that we have the greatest possibility of control of ourselves. Okay? We think that if only I can do everything for everyone, they won't be mad at me. That's the reason why we want to try to make everything okay with everybody else. Now, I'm not saying you have to stick your finger in everybody's eye, but the fact of it is, we can't do everything for everybody else and they won't be mad. That's wrong. Isn't that true?
Yep.
We can influence them, okay? And we do influence everybody around us, whether it's positively or negatively. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Anybody? Comment from anybody? Number 5. We gotta hurry. Only worry about what you think of yourself. What do you think about that statement? Only worry about what you think about yourself.
That's really the only way you can change what you think about yourself.
That's true. That's true. Now, we're not saying that we should think of ourselves better than anybody else, but we should not think of ourselves lower than anybody else, right? That's scripture, okay? And so we need to free ourselves from being controlled by what other people think.
Amen.
Okay, because we're always worried about what other people think. I've had people that I've talked to in my office, and they talk about knowing what other people think. And I said, can you read people's mind across the street? Sometimes they say yes.
You're done.
Well, see, because it's not their mind it's not the people across the street's mind that they're reading, it's their mind that they're reading, because it's what they think that they think.
Yeah.
And so we think that they're thinking something bad of us. And you need to be more concerned about what you think about you than what other people think about you. And if I even say it, take it up a notch, we need to be happy with ourselves. We need to have that congruency in ourselves and love ourselves and be okay with ourselves. And because if you're happy with you, your life is better. If you're mad at yourself, or you hate yourself, or you're displeased with yourself, or you're judgmental of yourself, or if you're unforgiving of yourself, you're a poison in your life. Now, yes, if you got things you need to change, you need to go to work on them. But you need to stop beating up on yourself. That's what we're talking about. You need to not worry about what other people are saying about you or thinking about you, because you can't control that. All you can control is what you're thinking. Okay? All right, number 6, leave room for mistakes. I'm going to try to speed up here a little bit. Leave room for mistakes. These are shorter anyway. So we all make mistakes. We're all human, and we all do stupid stuff, right?
Yep.
Yes. And that's okay, because we're human. Because it is making mistakes, that flaws are human. So we make those mistakes. And those experiences those mistakes we make, we need to learn from. When you agree? So we need to learn from our mistakes. And then we need to move on. And it doesn't make you stupid to say a wrong thing. Like the thing I misquoted some facts. That doesn't make that doesn't make me stupid. It just made me factually incorrect, which I had a sense that I said the wrong thing when I said it. And then I looked at it later, and yep, I did. So, it doesn't make you stupid to say something wrong or silly. It makes you human. And sometimes even funny. All right? And we have to be willing to be funny or silly sometimes, and we have to be willing to laugh with others that may laugh, and we ought to be able to laugh at ourselves. Wouldn't you agree?
It's most important to laugh, be able to laugh at yourself, because if you can't laugh at yourself, you go through life depressed.
Number 7, accept the things you cannot change. We kind of already touched on that, and the only thing that we can change is, well, we can't change the past, right? We can't change the past.
The future is today.
Yeah, all we can do is be in the moment, be in the present, be who we are right now. Even if we don't like who we are right now, we just hear, we recognize that, and we begin to direct our future in this moment. And and from the present, and let go of the past. Okay? So that's number 8. No, that's number 7. Number 8 is don't take yourself seriously, which we kind of already touched on with that other one. But allow yourself to relax through this journey. And you know, this has been a challenging one for me throughout my life, is because I have been pretty focused and pushed on things. I know that I remember having to go to meetings in other states and and of course other cities, and I'd go right there, do the meeting, and then come right back, and which is not all bad, but there's things that I would have liked to seen while I was there, or maybe done, but I was so focused on.
Focus on what you're doing.
Yeah, I just didn't take time. There you go. I didn't smell the roses. And so we need to enjoy life. We need to take time to laugh and enjoy life and ourselves and others. That's important. Because you know what? As my brother the other day said, in fact, his birthday's coming up here soon. Yeah, real soon. And for about a month, we're the same age, and he said that, you know, time would go so fast, you know. Weeks are not weeks, they just go so quick. They, you know, nowadays, you know, years go really quick, you know. So, yes, sir.
That's like me and my brother's 14 months younger than me. He's the same age for like 2 months. It's wild.
All right. Well, then he can't be 14 months younger than you.
Well,
It'd have to be.
I mean, that'd be the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Second one. Yeah, he's like 11 months or something like that.
Okay, so relax. Don't take things so seriously. That doesn't mean that you should slough off everything, but, you know, smell, as John says, smell the roses. Okay, number 9, are you ready to go to number 9?
Yeah.
All right, number 9, do what scares you. That's a pretty big statement. I learned many years ago that the thing that helped me a lot was to recognize my fear and go towards it. And that's hard, okay? This statement here is do what scares you, you know. Either you're going to be ruled by your fear or you're going to work on overcoming your fear. Trouble is, a lot of substance abuse and different behaviors is to escape the reality, and oftentimes a lot of that is wrapped up in fear or loss. Does that make sense? And so we try to, instead of going ahead and going ahead and deal with it, well, it's human nature to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's a human trait that God gave us, but that's a survival technique. And if we continue to stay in that survival technique, then we never learn to address pain and grow and develop and learn and challenge ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Number 10, express what works for you. This is an interesting statement here. We need to let people know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, because we're talking about communication here. I don't hear it so much as I did before, but it says here, she says here, that we need to find our voice and share it. And several years ago, I heard that come up a lot about finding my voice. And I agree with finding our voice. But the trouble is, oftentimes people were finding their voice in anger. Okay, in anger, find their voice in anger. And we had to find our voice somewhere. And even if we start in anger, that, in my opinion, that's better than no voice at all. But that's not the place that you need to get hung up in. You need to find your voice, what works for you and what doesn't work for you, but you need to do that, have that voice not in anger but in love, right? And compassion. And then you communicate that to people, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And the really big point here is that if we do that, then we're dealing with our own stuff, the stuff that needs to be resolved in us. Instead of bottling things up and suppressing or repressing, we're allowing ourselves to process that and communicate and work through and navigate ourselves and with others through life. And that's healthy. Does that make sense? So the last statement on that is that expressing yourself is an important part of feeling good about yourself and your relationships. So expressing yourself, I believe, in an appropriate way, which is with compassion or with love. Yes, there may be some times that there is some anger there, but if everything has to be expressed, or your voice with anger, then you're still stuck, in my opinion. What do you think? Any comments from anybody?
I feel that I'm gonna keep it honest.
Honest, yes. Honesty is very important. But then again, some people can only be honest when they're angry. Well, I mean, they're only honest, and the rest of the thing of it is, when they're honest, when they're angry, they say things that they know that's not going to benefit them or the person they're speaking with, but it still can be honest. I mean, just because you feel a particular way doesn't mean that it's actually even true. It's true, that's how you feel, but that doesn't mean the facts are true. Have you ever accused somebody of something that you found out that wasn't true?
Yeah, that makes you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with you, but again, we're talking about letting go and coming to a place that we're able to get free ourselves. And sometimes the only way that people have been or they've been taught that they can be free is to put somebody else down or in bondage or hurt them. And if it's a win-lose situation, we still end up losing in the long run, right? Because what we want is a win-win situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Number 11, allow yourself to feel negative emotions. Okay, allow yourself to feel. You need to know what you're feeling because your emotions are a signal to you to say what's going on. And you need to be aware of them so that you can process them, so you can be, to help guide you. Now, that doesn't mean, now a lot of people let emotions control them and speak through them. Oftentimes that's anger or rage, all right? But we need to be aware of them so that we're able to say, well, what's going on here? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? What is that feeling that I'm feeling right here? Well, that's this. Okay? Well, what's the feeling underneath that feeling? Okay? Well, I don't know. Well, do you think there's something underneath there? Well, kind of, yeah, I think there's. What could that be? Well, how does that feel? How would you describe it? If it had a color, what color would it have? Sometimes people have colored feelings. I've even heard people having feelings that they could taste.
Yeah.
But you see, if you can get in contact with it, then you're able, because you're bringing it into your conscious reality, then you're able to recognize it. Now, does that mean you have to, that it can't be something that can benefit you? Because all feelings can benefit you. Depends on how you understand them and react to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if you are in charge of that, that means then your brain's in charge instead of your emotions being in charge. Is that too much? Okay. All right, so let yourself feel and go through the grieving process, because a lot of times people are in grieving process and they don't want to have these feelings, so they turn them off. Well, you can turn them off, but that doesn't mean they want to stay off. What?
You know what I learned when I stopped being mad and allowed myself to grieve?
Yes?
I found myself doing very strange things that didn't harm nobody or myself,
Good.
but they were just odd. Grieving caused me to do odd things. They weren't wrong, they were just things I would be doing and going, what am I doing?
And allow that's and I would suggest, or I think that those were healing
Yeah,
for
but
you
it was
also.
in the process of when I was dealing with
Right.
the process of grieving, instead of being in rage, anger, and addiction,
Right.
and mayhem, and,
Right.
you know, so
Right.
I just let it happen.
There you go. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it was healing, and it made you better.
Some of them are fun.
Yeah.
They were-
And those are all good things. Okay, so we need to be aware of our negative feelings, particularly of loss, and allow ourselves to hurt and to be sad. You know, oftentimes we won't allow ourselves to feel hurt or be sad. We need to recognize that, yes, that's how I am. That doesn't mean we continue to wallow in that, self-pity and things, but if you allow yourself to process through those feelings, those emotions, then things, as you just described right there, congratulations, then things are able to make a shift in you. And healing comes. And the pain subsides.
Some of the people that were around me were looking at, they were, you know, older people generation, and they're looking at me, some of the things you do are just strange. And I was like, at first I'd stop. And I was like, no, I don't have to stop. I'm not harming nobody.
That's good. I'm not harming
So
anyone.
now they just know me as sometimes strange. I found out that they're strange themselves.
Which were all strange, right? So, let yourself feel and go through the grieving process. process so that you can move forward, right? 12th and final one. Anybody else have anything to say on that, number 11? Number 12, learn to forgive. Learn to forgive. How do we learn to do anything? Practice. Start doing, start practicing it.
Get some wins in there.
Do what?
Wins.
Get some wins in there and you practice. Because we can't see the whole field when we've got ourselves sidelined, right? So we need to learn to forgive, and resentments and unwillingness to forgive will keep you locked in the past and prevent you from moving forward in your life. Isn't that just a true statement?
Yep.
Okay?
It's always a process.
Yes, it's a process. So remember, when you forgive, that you, again, are not doing it for others. You're doing that for yourself. Right? And that to forgive is letting go. The last quote of the night here is this. It's Carl Jung says, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Right?
I believe that.
Yes. Do I?
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being.
I'm not a human being, I'm a human being. And I get to choose, I get to choose, I get to choose. You always get to choose. You can choose. Hey, God protects you to be stupid if you want to be stupid, right?
Choose life or death.
It's like a remote. You know, you can choose to change the channel. You can stay stuck in that, or you can go on with it.
Right? Right? Do you want to change the channel? Right? That's good. I like that. If you're on a sick channel and you know that's not going to help you any, so maybe you need to change the channel.
Quit watching reruns.
Yeah. Or something that you know how it's going to go.
Put on some Amos and Andy.
Put on what?
Amos and Andy.
Amos and Andy, okay. So, you are not your pain, you are not your past, and you're not your emotions. Right?
Yep.
So then who are you? That's a question for you to answer, right? Who are you? All right, we defined what you're not. Who are you? That's between you and God, right?
I'm working on being what God made me to be.
Okay, amen. So, who we really want to be, we need to set aside those negative feelings, those ideas of negative feelings that harm us and hurt us, that self-talk that we pollute ourselves with. You know what I'm talking about? That self-talk that we pollute ourselves with, and then we need to let go of all that stuff that's polluting us or killing us, and then gain a strong sense of who we are. Like the question I just asked about, who are you? Great, and the ability to learn and grow. And none of us know everything. And I study real hard to try to learn, to be able to share things here in Saturday night and other places. And so I have always believed that if I could learn things that would help me, that I was concerned, I believed that it would help others. And so hopefully this has been helpful to you. Any final comments?
Been eventful.
Excuse me?
It says it's been eventful. A lot of good information.
Okay. Am I trying to push too much in?
No, you're good.
No? Too much? Not too much? Okay. I take this information, but I also try to give you my take and my interpretation. Is that helpful, or should I just give you the information?
No, you present it clearly enough for us to understand, I think, for me.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jamie?
With interpretation.
Excuse me?
However you said it.
Okay.
Did you do good?
Interpretation.
You understand it?
Thank you. come you didn't tell me my collar was up? I had my jacket on, and when I took it off, I guess I turned my collar up. Jamie, you've been watching me in that TV, how come you didn't tell me I had my
The
collar?
phones.
Told you 3 times,
You did.
told you 3 times.
Okay, any comments from anybody?
It's okay to pop your collar sometimes.
Yeah.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace, and make healthy choices.
I'll try.
And of course, forgive yourself, let God forgive you, accept His grace and peace in your life, and let that come in and help you through your walk. It will make a big difference. So, until next week, hey,
That's all, folks.
take care of yourself.
I was gonna say, you send me samples of this stuff, but apparently you was thinking that too, huh? Yeah, but I am, you send me some?
Don't be a stranger, I said.